Hello, it's Barbara Jean, the Stamping Queen. Today, we're going to do some watercoloring with watercolor pencils. It isn't exactly like watercoloring, but it comes up with a very great outcome. So, this is a piece that I started before already so that you don't have to just watch me color. And so we're just going to finish this part of it. And these are the watercolor pencils that come with the Nature's Paintings kit. So those are the only ones we're going to use. So I'm just going to finish these and then I'll show you what it looks like. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to just lightly go over all of this with orange. And I have to turn it around so I can see. I can't always see where I want to see if it's not just turned in exactly the right position. But it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference because we're going to use water over the top of it, and then we can control where the color goes. So we're just going to work on this a little bit. Now, the really interesting thing is color gets to be very vibrant and full and have depth of color when we layer colors. So that's what we're going to do here. This area right here is just one single layer of red, of this red. And so I'm going to show you the difference when we get there. So this space right here, I used Pumpkin Pie. Now I'm going to use Daffodil Delight. I know it's upside down. And I'm going to press a little harder, and I'm going to go right through the center. I'm not going to go all the way to the edge of the petal, and I'm not going to go all the way down in here. I'm just going to go right to the center of each petal. And it doesn't take long. You can see I'm not really being careful where everything is coloring in. I'm just kind of throwing in a little bit of color there. I'm gonna do this middle part right here before we do much else, because I just want to show you how I'm going to do it. So the really interesting thing is these are the colors that I have. I want the center of this poppy to be kind of a brownish tanny color. So I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to use Early Espresso, and I'm just going to lightly go over all of the center. I don't want it really dark, but I do want it to look like it's not part of the paper. And then I'm going to take the yellow, and there again, I'm going to go just in the center, and I'm going to press a little bit harder. And now I'm going to take the Early Espresso once again, and I'm going to go just a little bit more around the edge. Okay, now we're going to use Berry Burst. I'm going to move these other colors out of the way that I'm not using. So I'm going to take Berry Burst, and just where things would be in the shadows, I'm going to add Berry Burst. And at the bottom, I call it the bottom. It's where the petal curves in and it meets the other petal. So I'm just going to color that a little. I'm just adding a little color, not a whole lot. You can tell it's not a whole lot. So I'm just going to add a little color here and over here, and just some of the places where it would be darker. Like, can you see this line right here? Right behind it would probably be a little bit of a shadow, so I'm going to add just a little bit of color there. And now I'm going to take the red, and I'm going to go pretty firmly over these spaces with the red, and I'm going to layer it over all the other colors. Because remember, color gets vibrant and beautiful when you layer the colors. I'm also, just because that's the kind of girl I am, I'm also just sort of doing each petal at a time. You don't have to. You could just go over all of it, because sorry, I can't talk today. The thing that makes a difference is the water. So as you put the water over it, that is how you can move the color around and make it just what you want. So we're just about ready for the color. Sorry, for the water. And as always, I will leave you links to all of the things that I used in this. So let's do the water. I can't find my, oh, here it is. Silly me. So this you just unscrew and put water in here. And I'm going to pull over a sheet of paper to just use as a thing to absorb the water that I'm going to squeeze out. So I'm just going to pull the lid off. It just comes off. I'm going to make sure that this is tight. And then right here, I'm just going to squeeze until I get a little bubble of water. Can you see it? There. So I'm just squeezing a little bit, and you should be able to see that little drop of water just come off. That's all I want to do, is just have that little drop of water come out. Then I know that all the bristles are evenly moist, and I don't want much water on here, so I'm going to be really careful not to squeeze this. And I'm going over one petal at a time, and I'm going to not go out of the lines, I hope. And this time it's going to make a difference where I go with this. So now I want to be very careful and fill in just each petal. And I'm taking it over here to this piece of paper and just wiping off so I get the little bit of excess color that it picked up. And now I'm going to go to the next petal. And I'm just going to wet this. It's watercolor pencils. It's like a very, very great idea. I think the person that discovered how to put these all together was absolutely a genius. And I'm just going to do all these little pieces, and I am really being careful to make sure that I stay in the lines, because that's how I can determine where the color is going to lay down on this. This is beautiful watercolor paper. It's got nice and smooth, and so it flows extremely easily. And you can see that the color is just being picked up, mixed together, and I can move it around this way. So I'm just going to take a little bit. There's not much water in these bristles right now, because I let it get kind of dry, and I want it kind of dry because I want to be able to move this just where I want it to be. All right, that's a little too dry. So I'm going to get my little bubble again and just squeeze it out onto the paper. And it's there. And then I don't have hardly any water in these bristles. And I don't want a lot of water in the bristles because I just want to be able to move the color where I want it to be. We're not going to do this whole thing. I could actually sit and do this for hours at a time, but I doubt you could just watch it for hours at a time. So we're just going to do a few pieces because I want you to see how incredibly easy this is. And I turn my work around so that I'm right-handed, so that it's always coming from this side, and I'm never actually touching this part of the picture with my hand. I want to make sure that I don't smear any of this and move it in a way that I had not anticipated because I got my hand in it. So I'm very careful not to do that. And I'm just moving the color around. It's mixing up together, and I'm just moving it around to fill in the places that I just want it to fill in. This is incredibly easy. If you've never done it before, you could do this. You could pick it up and with these wonderful watercolor pencils, it would be so easy. I'm not going to do all of these petals around just to show you, because you get the idea. I know that you do, because it's what you see is easy. And so now I'm going to take, in the center of the flower, I'm just going to take it and move my water painter around in a circle because I just want it to fill in that little bit of an area. So, can you see how wonderfully it looks beautiful and shaded, and you can see that it's got texture and there's depth to it? Well, that's because we layered all those colors together. So now I'm going to show you what this looks like. This is just red. It's just the one color and it's just red. So I got the little bubble of water and moved it off, and now I'm just going to move this around. I'm gonna touch every place of it with the water painter. And you can see that there is some texture, but it doesn't look like this. This looks like it took a very long time, and you watched me, it didn't. It took me 5 minutes or so to do the initial color and part that you didn't see. So there's just the one color. And does it look fine? It looks absolutely fine. It looks absolutely fine. And if you want to do that, please do that, because we get to do what we like. We're the ones doing it. But now I want to show you something else. So I'm just going to set this back, and I have another one that I've been working on because I want to show you some really neat things that you can do with watercolor pencils. To this point, except for these two petals, these two flowers were done the same. You can see they look extremely much the same. But now this is dry, so now I'm going to take more color, and I'm going to add more color over the top of where I already used the brush. So I'm pressing a little harder at this point. And I'm not getting all the way to the edge, and I'm not touching the edge of the petal. This is the pumpkin pie. So now I'm using the red, and I'm just going to go around just the very edges of this and just give it a little color, a little additional color, because I want it to be more bold like these two petals are. And I'm going to do each petal so that I can put the color just where I want it. And now we're going to use Berry Burst, and I'm going to go over these parts that are just down closer here to the center. And I'm just moving a little bit of color off of the pencil and onto the paper. And I'm going to see if I can give it a little more depth. So right here, I'm going to we're going to use just a little bit of that so that that'll be a little darker. That's just at that edge. And over here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to put a little color here at this edge and right along these lines a little. Now, let's see what happens with that. The really fun thing about this is you can just experiment until you find the way that you like it to look, and each one can be your very own personal masterpiece. Okay, so I just pulled that bubble of water off of here, so there's not any dripping water right now. This is the petal that I just added that little bit more color to, and now we're going to see what it looks like. Now I'm being a little more careful. I'm following the lines of the flower because those are like the contour parts, and the contour parts are what give it the shape and depth. So I'm going to just move that color a little bit, and I move it so that I can see, but so that I'm never putting my hand over the top of the painting, the coloring painting. I don't know what you would call it. I don't know what I call it either. So now I'm just going to pick up this little piece right here. I don't want to move it very far, but I want it to have a nice soft edge. And anything that I think is not soft enough, I'm going to come back and just touch it a little bit with a little more water so that it can soften it up. I don't want any hard lines to it. I just want soft edges. So let's see. A little bit more. I just want to soften out those lines a little bit more. And that is all there is to using watercolor pencils. I think the idea was so genius. I'm so glad somebody came up with it, because this, I think, is absolutely gorgeous. It wasn't my idea for the color scheme. It came from the kit, but I just went with it because I think it's absolutely gorgeous. So now you can see the difference. This is just one layer. Let's see what happens when we add some more color to this one layer. So I'm going to add some yellow right up here at the top, and I'm pressing pretty hard. You can probably see the contrast. I'm pressing pretty hard because I want it to be quite yellow. And now I'm going to take, nope, not Early Espresso. I'm going to take Berry Burst, and we're going to come right in here just a little bit, just to give it some contrast and some depth. So here, because it's meeting this, this petal is meeting this petal, I'm just going to give it a little bit of a darkness right here at the edge, because I want it to look like it's on top of and the other is in back of. I want you to be able to see where all the layers go. And I'm pushing fairly hard. I'm not pushing hard enough to make marks into the paper. I'm just pressing hard enough to get some color off the pencil. And I wasn't really careful. It's the angle that I'm working at. If I could put my head right over this so I could see, then you couldn't. So that would be kind of defeating the purpose. But that little spot right there is just because I just wasn't over the top of it like I would be if I were doing this without it being on camera. So now, can you see where I added the extra color? And you can see it's picking up shape and texture and a little more depth. So the whole thing about doing watercolor and doing your own crafts is to make it just like you want it. I'm here to give you ideas, and then you get to do with those ideas what you will. But this is an absolutely gorgeous kit. All of these designs come in this kit, and you can use them for, a card front. You could cut them in half and use them for 2 card fronts. You could take them, and there's 2 of each of these designs in the kit. So you could take one and make a card front out of it. And then you could take one and put it in a nice little frame and just display that. Or have it so that you could display one every few months. You could just take them and trade them out. So these would be very beautiful, beautiful designs. And I'm just giving you an idea of what you can do. Very, very easy. I highly recommend this kit. This is absolutely beautiful. This is the designer's rendition of color, and I think it's absolutely beautiful. I'm going to try and recreate this, and I'll send a still picture to my Facebook page, but this I think will be absolutely gorgeous. Barbara Jean, the Stamping Queen, and I hope that this has been informative for you, and I really hope that you give coloring with watercolor pencils a try. It is great fun, and until again, I'll see you then. Barbara Jean, the Stamping Queen.